Hello guys, it is 12:53. I had a text at 8:18 a.m. What was that? Okay. I will deal with that later. Sorry. Weird start. But yeah, so I'm at that one place with the two lakes this time. So yeah, figured it'd be a nice way to start the just week, I guess. I woke up this morning at like 10:30 and I watched like one or two YouTube videos. It's like it was just a few, and then I listened to my music playlist and did some meditation. And I don't know, I felt feel like I've understood some things, and yeah, it's just I feel really light, and I don't know, it's like I feel like it's clicked into place where I just, I love all of me. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to really explain it. It just clicked. So that's kind of big. I didn't expect for that to just happen that way. But it is what it is. Sorry, I thought that there was like bikes or something, because I saw some bikes ahead, but oh well. So yeah, I don't know. I think I accomplished my goal. I say I think because I don't know, it just kind of clicked. So I'm like, what? I guess it was just that easy. Haha. But yeah. Being myself and loving being myself, I think that's what like switched things. It's like I don't really know how to explain it. It's just a different way of existing, and yeah, I'm just gonna continue being me, and I'm gonna enjoy this really cool walk that we're on, and yeah, I don't know. I feel a little embarrassed. I don't know why. I feel like a cheeky little kid, just like excited to exist and just doing things. So that's nice. I also, I don't know. Hi, how's it going?
Hello.
It's a beautiful day.
Yes, it is. Enjoy.
You too. Oh wow, there's so many dragonflies up there. I don't know what to say here. My mind feels very empty at the moment. It's kind of nice to just walk. I know that's going to be a video that may not be as exciting. I was going to say boring, but I think there's a certain charm to just quiet walking sometimes. So I don't know. What am I going to talk about today? What should I talk about today? What is it that you guys need to know right now? Not to be afraid. I don't know what you're afraid of, but I don't think you should ever let fear dictate what you do. There's a guy coming up. Let's stay on this side. Luckily, the trail's big enough so we can both pass without worrying about it. How's it going? He's locked in, focused. Anyway. Fear. Guess I'll talk about fear. Why do we fear things? Well, I think when we exist in our day-to-day lives, we do a lot of assumptions. Assumptions about ourselves, about the limits of what we can do. We also make assumptions about the world, what it has to offer, and we get comfortable in those assumptions. And anything that kind of strays from what we're assuming things to be, it gets scary, because it's almost like you realize that you are making assumptions. It's like a really meta thing. Think about it this way. When you let's say I make an assumption that a friend of mine is really bad at video games. And that's just an assumption I've just had for a very long time. One day, that friend comes over to hang out, and we play Super Smash Brothers. And I get fucking destroyed. My assumption of him being bad at video games, or she, completely shatters. I'm like, oh fuck. This person's actually way better at video games than I thought. Or at least better at this specific video game. And in this example, you wouldn't necessarily fear this person, but you might be more wary when it comes to video games, where you can't just write the person off. And because of that, your worldview shifts very subtly. This person no longer is someone that is bad at video games. And I think it's important to recognize that this stuff happens all the time. We make assumptions. Like, for an example, on this trail, I made several assumptions. I assumed that it was going to be safe, which I do think it is safe, but I assumed that this is a safe trail. I also assumed that the sun was not going to be hot enough to sunburn me because I'm not wearing sunscreen. I assumed that there was going to be enough shade, and most of the time, these assumptions are correct for the most part. This is why we make assumptions, because most of the time, they just kind of work. Because if you don't make assumptions, and you have to prepare for everything as if it's a life and death struggle, you're going to tire yourself out, and you're not going to get anything done. So we use these shortcuts of assumption to kind of plow through and get a lot of stuff done. Sometimes our assumptions will be proven wrong, and then we'll update and try to make better assumptions in the future. But at the end of the day, we're just making assumptions to try and make it easier to exist and do things. It also kind of gives you some limited foresight. If I walk down this trail, I assume it'll feel similar to walking down the other trail that I frequent. Now, most of the time that is a true assumption, but sometimes those assumptions are wrong, as I've said. And so, where does fear come in all of this? When you make assumptions, it gives you a false sense of security. Because if you assume everything's going to be fine, you can walk into situations that may be much more dangerous or have a higher likelihood of being wrong on your assumptions without really thinking too much about it. And when you do this, you end up in a scenario where you can kind of unintentionally kind of, I don't know if make mistakes is the right word, but you unintentionally write stuff off. And you don't necessarily think things through all the time. Now, you may be asking, what does this have to do with fear? Well, fear stems from the unknown. It stems from a sense of insecurity on something, some level. There is something that you are insecure about, and that manifests as a fear. Now, what do we do about fear? Because inevitably, fear will trail us. It will follow and morph and change depending on the situation you're in and whatnot. But there's one thing that fear kind of is attached to, which is a major false assumption. And when you realize that this false assumption exists, suddenly fear becomes kind of a joke. And it's something that you can kind of circumvent altogether. And what I mean by that is, when you realize this thing I'm about to say, you kind of you completely flip the board that fear is playing on. And I'm personifying fear, but like, you understand what I'm saying. So because of that, well, you don't want to I'm just gonna say what it is, and then I'll get into more explanation later. So fear plays off the idea that, number one, we are limited. And what I mean by that is the unknown is scary because, well, it's just that, the unknown. It is something that is not knowable. And because it's not knowable, it's outside of our control. So fear wants us to believe that anything outside our control inevitably is scary and dangerous. The unknown is fraught with dangers. And so you get the scenario of the dark forest, which the dark forest is the idea that every civilization has some sort of eventual understanding that we consume things and we war with each other. And because we do that, other people and other civilizations must also do that. And because of that, you get into a scenario. Hi, how's it going? Oh, pretty good. It's a great day out. So you get into a scenario where, in order to prevent themselves from getting destroyed by some unknown civilization, it's better to stop the civilization from growing and advancing, or to make them become subservient to you or something like that, because they're considered unknown. Because they're unknown, they're dangerous. This is the logic behind this fear of the unknown. And so, because of that, you get a scenario where humanity has kind of thought up this thought experiment of bigger, more advanced civilizations thinking the same as humanity, where they want to endlessly expand. Because they want to endlessly expand, that means there's not enough room in the universe for everyone. Which is, by the way, absurd. But I'm just going to let that linger there for a moment. So because of that, we too must do the inevitable thing, which is stop people from advancing before they get too powerful to stop us from doing things and advancing and growing. And this is all under the assumption that everyone is like us, number one, and number two, that the unknown is filled with danger. So you can see how this breaks apart when you realize even within humanity, not everyone thinks that way. You think about even your closest friends and family. You have disagreements and differences in opinion. You all think differently. And as such, there is no one size fits all when it comes to humanity. And in fact, even though we are very similar in most of our kind of wants and desires, how we go about it can be vastly different. And so, using this dark forest logic completely breaks apart, realizing that not even humanity, the civilization that we know, the best, because we are humanity, we can't agree on something. And the closest thing we can agree on is love and fear. If you're afraid of something, you're afraid of something. If you love something, you love something. And so, fear has us make this assumption that the unknown is dangerous. Fear also makes this assumption that the worst possible thing that could happen will happen. And there's a difference between preparing for some sort of disaster in every conceivable way versus having a general idea of where are your closest hospitals, basic knowledge of the area, the people you live around, things like that. Having a fire extinguisher versus making every single item in your house not flammable because you're afraid of fire, right? The former is completely reasonable. The latter is insane. And that all stems from fear. Do you listen to the fear, or do you not listen to the fear? Doesn't mean you have to be stupid and you completely ignore your safety altogether. But even in that scenario, where you do in fact ignore everything, this is the second part that fear makes us believe, is that once this life ends, that's it. This is our only life. And that's technically true, but from a very different perspective. It is true that this life is the only life me, Tom, the one that identifies the way I do, this is the only time that I will be me. But that is not the only time I will exist. And so that's kind of an important distinction. Oh my gosh, there's a really big fish. I got to the thing. Let me turn this around. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm so sorry, little frog. I didn't even see the frog there. I don't know if you guys can see, there's two fishes swimming in the shallow end over here. Oh, three fishes. And then there was a frog over there that I scared. This is really cool. This is just I always thought this was a cool little pond. That's so cool. Okay. Alright. Well, I enjoyed seeing the little fishes. I hear like a truck or something coming. Maybe? Or something. I don't know. They're doing something. But anyway, so getting back to what I was saying. This second assumption is the assumption that we only have this one life and that we'll disappear afterwards. And this fear is very pervasive because we're pushed to do a bunch of stuff, leave a mark on society, so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of where this assumption, as long as you hold to this assumption, fear will have a hold on you in some form. A fear of death, a fear of not being good enough, of not leaving your mark, of all sorts of things, right? But the moment you internally realize that there is this existence that you are that is not your body, that fear disappears because it's built on a lie. It's built on the fact that we are finite. We are not finite. This body is finite, but we are not finite. And this is where we come to this crossroads of well, I don't believe that. Why don't you believe it? Because I just don't. Okay, well, I can't tell you anything to get you to believe in something that you don't believe in. So where does that leave us? Well, the way to understand this is through meditation. And that's boring. That's the boring answer. Why is it meditation? Why can't it be, I don't know, something else? Well, there's a reason meditation works so well. To do all sorts of things. It's because meditation allows you to remove the body and the mind from the equation. When you remove those two things, shouldn't you just be dead? Well, you're not. When those are removed, you have something else. And this is where it's like, well, fuck. If I have something else that isn't a part of the body and it isn't a part of the mind, this is kind of the first form of proof for yourself. This is why people who meditate and get to the point where they can separate their mind and body from whatever's else is there, they all come to the same conclusion. This is one of many lives that we will live. And because of that, we fundamentally just change our perception of reality. And fear of this ultimate end no longer exists because you know there isn't an ultimate end. There's a transformation. You may morph and change, grow, adapt. You may become a different form. But isn't that what we do as humans to a lesser extent? We obviously don't morph from a human to like an animal, to like a bird, to like a butterfly, you know, not in the physical sense. But it doesn't mean we're not transforming. You can talk to someone and they can have a huge change. And the huge change, it's something where it just, boom, that's it. You go from one thought to a different thought, and everything changes because of it. And this happens all the time to us. You learn something. Suddenly, things aren't as black and white. And you just keep learning your whole life. Some people choose to kind of slow down and stop their growth, but it doesn't mean they can't grow. It just means that they've chosen to kind of slow down. And that's fine. We don't grow at the same pace at all times. Just wanted to... I'm here at this really cool... The sun's like blasting my eyes, but there's some ducks over here. Little duckies. Wonder if there's any fish here. Oh, sorry guys, coming up to the water. Oh, what was that? Did I step on something? Hello? What was that noise? Now I'm just curious, what the fuck was that? Is it like a frog? It probably is like a frog or something. But... oh, look, there's a little swimmy guy down there. Oh, it was a frog. There's a cute little frog in there. There's so many little frogs. I can't see anything. I don't know why I haven't flipped this. Oh my god. Come on. Are you still recording? Yeah. There you go. I don't know if I'm getting a very good shot of these little guys. Sometimes just quiet, allowing to just see what is. There's all sorts of cool things. There's a little bumblebee there. So many dragonflies. And then the frogs. Bunch of little swimmy guys like tadpoles and stuff. Then there's the little ducks over there. Yeah. It was cool. Alright, I'm gonna go. Okay. Wonder what that fucking thing was. I'm sure if I played it back I could probably figure it out, but okay. Alright, well that was cool. But anyway, so getting back to what I was talking about before. I guess I need to blow my nose first. I think there's a woodpecker. It's kind of cool. Anyway. So, yeah, I think this is kind of a crucial thing that everyone needs to kind of learn over time. And when you learn and understand this kind of basic understanding of yourself, it completely changes everything. How's it going? Beautiful day. But yeah, so this understanding of you effectively being an infinite being for all intents and purposes. You exist beyond this. Because when you get it deeper into meditation, you can see that you are an observer. I've mentioned this before, the observer that we all are. But this fundamentally comes from the separation of the mind and the body from whatever else exists. And you can say it's a soul, which is what I believe, but it could be anything, right? We don't have to define it in order to know that there's something else there. So taking this basic understanding and then applying it to fear, what does fear try to have you do? It tries to alter your behavior in some way out of a perceived sense of safety, because inevitably this body will perish. Now, it's possible that in the future we find a way to keep our bodies intact for longer, or nigh indefinitely. But regardless, the us that is right now has a limited lifespan without, some weird genetic modification stuff. But our other observer part doesn't. How can something non-physical that doesn't age in the same way that the body does there isn't some sort of expiration date stamped on it, as far as we know. Now, maybe when you pass on, we discover that maybe there is an expiration date, but it's like it spans in some other metric we can't really measure or fathom right now. So that's really not the point. The point is you will be continuing past this body. And you might ask, where's the proof? How do we know? I mean, nothing's for sure. We don't actually know. But what I do know is this observer part is just tagging along in this body and piloting it. I think of it like a mech body, or how you drive a car. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what you are, but sorry. Sorry, little guy. But yeah, so if you understand us as being pilots, and again, your understanding could differ, but I think it's important to remember that there is a fundamental truth, which is there is other. There is some other that is you, but is not the body and the mind. As long as you understand that, you don't have to worry about fear in the same way. You still have to battle fear in other aspects, but those things are built while here. You don't actually fear those things because nothing, as far as I know, nothing can actually interface with the observer in any meaningful way other than to have like non-physical experiences through meditation, or you can connect on a deep level with someone. These are things that we can't really experience physically. And even the body's sensations that we experience, it's like, yes, the observer is experiencing that, but there's kind of a layer of separation where we basically I don't know, we just don't have this how do I explain this? This is tough. Okay. Basically, the way I understand the observer, there is this immutable quality to the observer. Like, I've tried to change all sorts of things about me, but there are qualities that don't change, at least in this life. Now, does that mean that it won't change in the future? Who knows? It's very possible that the observer part of me has set up a set of goals that is this immutable characteristic, and that is my guiding post. That's at least what I believe. You can believe whatever you want, but there are immutable qualities about you that you just can't change. It's almost like there's like a pain when you finally realize that it exists. Not following along with that quality of you hurts. You do have free will and you can not follow it, but I don't know. It's like it just hurts to not follow it. And it's like, it's a deep like thing internally. There's no physical manifestation of it. Although it could, I will say, sometimes you could have a physical manifestation, but that's not the point. So what do we do with this information? Because I'll just say, if you haven't experienced this, I recommend you take some time to really give it a shot and do some sort of meditation, whether it be some breathing technique or, there's tons of meditation techniques out there, right? But honestly, give it a true shot. And it's not something that's going to show up overnight. You can't just do it once and then suddenly you're enlightened. It takes some dedication to work through it. And some people need to be more dedicated, and they'll get the same benefit as someone who may be less dedicated. it's all, it's a very variable thing. So I can't give you specific times or guidelines on when it happens, right? But you'll know when you're able to observe yourself in a third-person perspective. It's an observation that is not your mind and not your body. You think a thought, and that thought you can observe. Why did I think that thought? But it's not really you questioning, why did I think that thought? It's pure observation. There's no talking associated with it. There's no mental fluctuations or communications or whatever. It is genuinely just detached, passively seeing. And this... Sorry, I gotta blow my nose again. I think something flew in my nose. Sorry about that. So you have this kind of detached, I don't know, like, it's just the observer. It's like water is water. It's that level of like, you just know it to be observing. And it is you. You know it's you. But it's a deeper level of you that you hadn't really realized exists. It's the same thing as in meditation, there is this idea of having a moment in between your inhale and your exhale, where you inhale for 3, you hold, and this holding, and then exhaling. In that holding moment, it's like there's a stillness that comes over you. And meditation talks about all sorts of like ways to kind of let that help you to get into these deeper states or whatever, right? But regardless, there is a moment where you are not breathing in or exhaling. And when you're in this state, you realize that there is not just inhale, exhale, there is a third state. And in this realization, it's like you unlock that deeper layer. You can't unknow that there's a third state other than inhale and exhale. Just as you can't unknow that there is an observer. That observer is you, but it's a part that you didn't realize existed. And when you realize there's one part that you didn't realize existed, you start to come to understand you don't know as much about yourself as you actually think you do. Because a lot of this is surface level, reactionary, but it's not it doesn't go deeper. And you can kind of quiz yourself and ask, like, how much do you actually know about yourself? You can sit down and you can write a list or whatever. But I guarantee you, the things you write down, almost always, not always, but almost always, are going to be surface level stuff. Because if you haven't reached that observer level, then you don't even, it's like if you've never seen water before and then you suddenly see water for the first time. No one can explain to you what it feels like to touch water, to swim in water, to drink water. But the moment you do experience it, it's like, now you know. But before, you didn't know. And so this is what I'm trying to get across. It is unknowable until you know it, because you didn't even fathom it could be there. This is why, it's kind of like it's hiding in plain sight. How's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. But yeah, this is why I think it's so important to unlock this, to know, be a knower. And I think this is the first step to kind of waking up. Because you acknowledging that the observer exists on a fundamental level allows you to get the next breadcrumbs. What are those breadcrumbs? Well, I'm at about an hour, so I'm gonna switch the camera, or the battery right here. So I'll tell you in a second. All right, I'm back. I also blew my nose and got some water. So, what the fuck? There's a really cool butterfly up there. Another swallowtail. Okay. Also saw a bunch of bike riders pass. Okay. So, I think I was talking about these other aspects of ourselves. The unknowable until you know. One of those are a cluster of pillars. I like calling them pillars because they are kind of fundamental to who I am. But these pillars are the immutable aspects of you that when you resonate with those pillars, there's a sense of like embodiment that you get from each one. Like you're doing it's a good feeling, but it's like instead of it being like instead of it being a resonance in the like you gain something additionally, it's more like the noise that you were so used to hearing goes away. So that's where it's like I can't explain it other than to say, imagine if your whole life you heard a sound. And that sound you thought was just like, here, I'll use this as an example. You hear the hum of the telephone wires, or the electrical grid wires, right? And that hum, imagine that being here for all of your life. And then one day, you do something and you discover that when you walk into this forest, it goes away. You're like, well, what does that even mean? Like, it just goes away? What does that feel like? I can't describe what it feels like. It's something where you have to, again, it's unknowable until you know. But once you know, you owe the light bulb. And then you too will also be like, I can't fucking explain this. So I'm doing the best I can, but it's very imprecise. So how do you know when you found a pillar? Well, you can't change it. That's how you know. By definition, it is an unchangeable aspect of yourself. As far as I'm aware, in this life, right? I'm doing the preface there because it's very possible that it's a mechanism to help us achieve the things that our observer self wants to achieve in this life. But in order to achieve it, we need markers. What are those markers? Best thing I can think of is the pillars. If you can't change them, and there's a resonance when you do the thing that aligns with the pillar, then, I mean, that sounds like a fucking marker, doesn't it? So this is why being yourself is so valuable and important. Because when you are yourself, and what I mean by that is you don't put any masks on, you don't put any false pretenses on. Whoever you are in that moment, you are. And you're unapologetically you. When you can do that, you can also start to feel what feels off. You start to hear the sounds that have been invisible to your ears this whole time. Because if you don't get to that point where you can distinguish the sounds, then you're never going to know if you're on the mark or not. You know, a deaf person, even the most savant deaf person, can never pitch perfect do like some sort of musical symphony in the same way that someone who can hear the melody can. And that's nothing against deaf people, right? There's nothing wrong with having a shortcoming like that. It's just, that is the nature of existing there. Hey, little guy. Hi. There's a little tiny blue butterfly and a white one. But, so this is why I think it's so crucial to be yourself. Because the sooner you are just you, the sooner you can start dissecting and recognizing the parts of you that match pitch-wise and the parts of you that are off in some way. And all you have to do from there is match the pitch, so to speak, right? I'm using this analogy. It's not precise, it's not accurate to what's actually going on, but it's a close approximation. So you match the pitch, boom, pillar done. Next pitch, boom, pillar done. This is how you find yourself. Because once you've unlocked all the pillars and resonated with all the pillars, that's your true self. That's what everyone talks about when they say the true self. And really, to me, I think this is just a guiding marker for us. Hey, when I remembered everything, all of existence that I've existed as the observer, these are my core values that I will not sway on. These are the things, the principles with which I fundamentally exist. And so if you do the same things I do, then we'll get accomplished the things I want to get accomplished and the things we want to get accomplished in this life. That's all it is. It's a marker system. And the reason I think there's a marker system is because without it, if you don't understand yourself and you don't know yourself at all, how can you make informed decisions? For a lesser extent, think about a scenario where you grow up learning a specific fact of life, that everything outside of this room is not, you open the door, you die, okay? So you've lived your whole life thinking that this room that you're in is the only room that has ever existed. Literally the Truman Show, right? But to a bigger extent. But the idea here is, if that's all you've ever known, how can you make an informed decision on reality if you don't know reality? You can't. And so in the same way, I think before we incarnate, we make these pillars very known, and it's a safeguard to help guide us to where we, like, who we truly are, to do the things that align with us on a daily basis, to be the people that we actually are, not the people who have forgotten. So that's why it's a snowball effect, where meditation unlocks so much that it's like, it's its own separate thing. You can be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but you can still be a beginner at understanding yourself. And that's okay. That's totally fine. We can do it at our own pace. That's kind of the point. You have as many tries as you want. You can spend as many lifetimes trying to figure it out. The sooner you do it, the happier you're going to be. But doesn't mean you can't have happiness if you don't know yourself. Just means it's going to be a lot harder because you're going blind. And when you're blind, well, I mean, you can only go so much. You can only go so far. Eventually, you're going to have to figure out a means for you to kind of see, even if it's not traditional sight. And so that's what this is. It's a means of seeing where once you were blind. And then, once you see the observer, then you go past that and you try to find the other pieces of you. And that's where you start to hear. And you hear the resonance, and you hear the disharmony, and you fix it. You change your behaviors to match the resonance within you. And then, boom, now you can hear and you can see. And suddenly, the world is very different. And that's not to say that the people who can't see and hear are any weaker or worse or bad or whatever. That's just where they're at. And that's okay. And you get this compassion for people at a deep level because you understand that the process that you went through, not everyone has gone through. That's why all the people who you see resonate with themselves and are genuine people, I haven't seen a single person who has resonated at that level and who hasn't had compassion for other people. Because it's just fundamentally, it's like a deeper understanding of existence. And so that's why I think it's so important to kind of go through this whole thing. Now, no one has to. And that's kind of the key. You do not have to do anything. I'm here, but I'm going to turn around and do some more walking. I'm going to blow my nose also. Okay. So, something I want to bring up. So 15, okay. I'll walk for another like 15 minutes and I'll turn around. So something that I want to kind of point out, and this is kind of a trap that you end up falling into once you've uncovered your hearing and your sight. You think, oh my God, there are so many people that can't hear or see because they have earplugs and they've closed their eyes. Well, we gotta help everyone. We gotta tell them how to open their eyes. We gotta tell them how to take out their earplugs. Naturally, you're compassionate about people, and that's the natural next step. Is like, I gotta tell people about this. Because how could they possibly live that way? And it's because you feel so deeply on how fundamental the change is for you that it becomes the most important thing. You're like, I gotta tell everyone. And then you realize, yeah, there are tons of people who have been trying to tell people this for ages. But you can't force people to take out their earplugs. You can't force people to take off their blindfolds. And it's not your job to do it. And that's kind of really tough to swallow. Because it hurts to see other people walking around blind and deaf when you know that it can be fixed immediately by taking both the blindfold off and taking the earplugs out. And I struggled with that for a while. So I will just say it is not an easy pill to swallow, as it were, because it's not your life. Because it's not your life, you do not have a say in how they uncover themselves. You can give guidance, but you can't push them into guidance. They have to discover it themselves. And it may not be your thing that makes them discover it. So an example, I talk about all this stuff. Do I expect anyone to suddenly go and start meditating? No. But I can say my experience, and I can say, hey, this is important. And maybe my version of saying it will spark some curiosity in someone, and then they will decide, fuck it, let's try. But only they can decide that. So I'm gonna film, I'm gonna be myself, and I'm just gonna embody what I'm talking about. And if people agree, like, support, whatever, great. If you don't, then you're not gonna watch the videos, right? You know, I think about the very first moments of walking when I got here, and how I was very quiet, I was paused, I didn't know what I was gonna say. And there's probably some people who clicked off the video. They're like, this is boring, and I'm not interested in watching him do this for an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever, right? But man, for the people who are continuing to listen right now, you heard the stuff I was talking about. I think it's incredibly important. And if you do too, well, start meditating. Start, you know, fumbling around and trying to figure it out. Because there's nothing really, there's no negative to you doing this. The only negative that I could say is your perception of reality changes. And is that negative when you take the blindfold off and you take the earplugs out? Some people might think it. Some people might say, well, I want to continue living a lie. And I say a lie. It's not really a lie, but it's uninformed. Some people choose to be willfully ignorant. And that's okay. And that is the hardest part of this whole thing. It's okay for people to live willfully ignorant. They can know something, but until they apply it, they're just gonna know it as something that exists. But as soon as they start applying it, that's when they like, oh fuck, I had to take out the earplugs. It's like, yeah, that's what we've been saying. And so instead of being like, you know, pushy about it, you just watch from the sidelines, let them make their decisions, and then congratulate them and welcome them when they take their head, like, Jesus, the earplugs and the face covering, right? When they finally take all of that off, it's like, holy shit, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. But until then, you're just there supporting them. And it doesn't mean you have to hold their hand at all points, right? So an example, if there's a literal blind person and they have a little cane to like figure out where they are, I can help them, but I can't be there for them at all points of their journey into taking off their blindfold, right? Because at a certain point, you have to also be living your life. Because this is the start. This is not the end. You figure out the pillars, you align, you do all this stuff. Great. Awesome. You are now ready to start your journey. Everything before has been build up to the now. And, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. I am starting my journey. And I'm fucking 37 years old, right? It's like, what were you doing for the past 36 years? Dude, that was fucking creepy. I felt like a spider crawled on me. Anyway, so that's kind of the thing, is like, it's just the start. Because you have chosen to come here at this specific time, in this specific body, with this specific set of understandings, and you've done that because you want to do something. What is it that you want to do? I don't fucking know. You have to figure that out. That's what the pillars are for. So for me, I've got the pillars. I think I know them all. You know, there's also the possibility of deeper levels that I don't know of. And, you know, again, similar to the blindfold to blindfold off, it's very possible that I can also be in a state where I have another type of blindfold on that I don't know about. The only way to understand and find out is to keep going, keep exploring, keep opening yourself up to more understanding, keep resonating with yourself, and if there are deeper layers, they will appear. But until then, you just keep going and doing the thing that makes the most sense. And what I mean by that is, what is the thing when you're resonating with yourself? You know, I love Bashar's kind of formula that he mentioned in a channel. And he keeps bringing it up. But there's a reason, because it does work. It's finding that passion for the thing that you're most passionate about. And just doing it and taking it as far as it can go. And you keep repeating the process. Right now, I'm the most passionate about this specific idea. So that's why I keep talking about it. When I lose passion for that thing, I will stop talking about it. And this is the evolution. This is us growing. This is us learning. And as long as you just continue doing that, you'll make it as far as you can go. That's all you need to do. And you don't have to feel bad about not making it to a certain spot. Just feel good about the things you have done. And just continue in each moment to just keep working on yourself. Keep striving forward one step at a time. That's all you need to do. So if your eyes are closed and your ears are plugged, start by trying to figure that out. And if you don't want to do that, okay, no problem. Maybe in 10 years you want to do it. Maybe it'll not be in this life. Maybe you just want to rest and relax. That's okay too. And part of all of this is stopping fear from getting in your way. Because fear is kind of the thing that tells us what not to do. If we fear something, chances are that fear is unfounded. Now, that's not to say if you're afraid of tigers, go into a tiger fucking cage, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is don't let fear stop you from making decisions that take courage. If you know that you're not happy in a relationship with someone, but you're afraid you're going to hurt their feelings by stopping the relationship, that's a stupid reason to continue being with them. I'm just saying, like, it really is. Because inevitably, unless you want to just continue living with them for your whole life or being with them, you're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off at some point. So the sooner you do this, and the sooner you just be honest and be open, the sooner you and the other person can move on. And yeah, it may suck in the moment, but there's teaching moments there. Everything that we go through can potentially teach you something. This is why you can open up and be yourself, and then realize that even if something bad happens, you can learn something from it, and it's actually good because you're learning about something that you previously didn't have knowledge of or didn't have an understanding of. This is how people can live their whole life happy, joyful, and excited to live, because they know that there's nothing possibly that they could experience that wouldn't be a learning moment or something that would help them grow, help them change. So it's like, well, you either have an experience you're really excited to have, or you have an experience that maybe you didn't necessarily want to have, but it teaches you something. That's a win-win. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I hope that this made sense, and yeah, take this understanding as you will. Whatever it does to help you, that's great. If it doesn't help you at all, no problem. If you want to look back on this in the future, just bookmark it or save it in some way and look back on it. And I do think this made me think about, like, this should definitely be a series. The, like, opening your eyes, popping out the earplugs, so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'll think about it. I'll figure out what to do. Anyway, okay, bye. I'll see you. Am I going to? I don't know if I'm gonna make a video later in the day. We'll see. But if I don't, I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks for listening. All right, bye.